here's my driving score. Currently 88% overall, and my acceptance rate, 84% out of 95%. When it is busy and there are a lot of bonuses, I am more likely to decline rides. But when it is slow and it really doesn't matter, I just keep moving. I find that I make more money per day if I'm just moving than if I'm just sitting there and what people call cherry picking. Despite what I just said, despite the fact that you see my acceptance rate, I cherry pick. And I think my method of cherry picking is better than all the other YouTubers who are talking about cherry picking. And the reason I say that is because I cherry pick the best times to drive. If I'm picking the best times to drive, then that means that the rides that do show up are typically good ride to take. But you can't do that unless you're, one, understand your market, and two, are willing to work during those times. A lot of independent contractors, they don't like to, they've said, I chose this for freedom, so therefore I'm gonna work when I wanna work. And then there's a lot of drivers in my town, and I suspect some of the people who are making $17 an hour compared to my $32 an hour, I suspect they're like, nah, I'm just gonna work 9 to 5 every day because that's what I want to do. And that's technically okay. You know, if that's what you want to do and you're not complaining about pay, that's fine. But if you want to maximize your income, you need to be driving when the bars are letting out. You need to be driving at 3 a.m. Yo, on the weekdays, I typically wake up at like 3 a.m. so that I can get downtown in time to take people to the airport because I know that's when the surges will start. I know my market like the back of my hand. I'm able to predict not just when bonuses will appear, but where they will appear. Now, how much they appear as, can't really get that detailed, but when you cherry pick the best days, the best times, the best places to drive, you're gonna find yourself having to cherry pick the individual rides a lot less. So that's something I want you to consider when you hear other YouTubers, other drivers talking about, oh, I cherry pick. And then, you know, like I watched some of these YouTubers, they put up like full screen shares of like their day driving, and they'll start their day at like 9 a.m., 8 a.m. What's happening at 8 a.m.? What's happening at 9 a.m.? There's traffic. We get paid more per mile than we do per time. Even with upfront pay, it's still an algorithm. And you might have noticed if you ever are waiting with someone at a stop, the pay doesn't dramatically change. But if a ride's distance changes, like they add a stop that's completely out the way, then you're starting to pay more money. So always figure out the best time to drive is. Generally speaking, you shouldn't be driving during traffic. However, I'm currently playing around with some strategies that allow me to navigate that. For example, if I know the flow of traffic in the morning goes from uptown to downtown, so if I'm trying to go downtown from uptown that there's traffic, what I'll do is before traffic starts, I'll make sure I'm downtown. And in my city, there's not a lot of traffic once you are downtown. So I'll drive there for a while. And whenever I want to leave, I know there's no traffic to go back home uptown. And I can do the opposite. So that's what I do in the morning. Opposite will be, I know that heading downtown, I'm not going to have any traffic. So at 5 p.m., when there's a bunch of traffic going uptown, I know that while I'm heading downtown, there won't be any traffic. But the caveat is, if I stay downtown using the area filter, I have to stay downtown until traffic is done, because if I try to go home or if I take a ride that's going with traffic, it's not going to be a pretty picture. So I am playing around with that. But overall, I still think that driving late nights when there are no cars on the road, where other drivers typically don't like to drive as well, so the supply and demand gets better, I think that's like the best time to drive in my market. This whole cherry picking thing is also going to be true for like inclement weather. If there's snowstorms or if there's flooding happening, less drivers are going to want to drive and more people are not going to want to walk. So there's going to be higher demand. So you need to cherry pick that. So to me, cherry picking, the best form of cherry picking is just cherry picking the correct times to drive. And then you can keep your acceptance rate up. It's really important for me to keep my acceptance rate up. I get 7% cash back on gas with the Lyft card for being a platinum driver. They do have a new tier called Elite. I'm going to try to hit it this weekend. It's my last week to try to hit it, and I've never had it before. It's kind of brand new. But if you're an Elite driver, you get 10% cash back. And to me, that's worth it. So sometimes what I'll do is, I knew leading up to Valentine's Day, what I'll do is I'll start accepting more rides, even if they're not the greatest rides, just so that I can pad my acceptance rate enough to where I can be more choosy during Valentine's Day or during, you know, whatever events happen. There is some play with it. It's not always all that great, but overall, I'd rather cherry picking my time leads me to be able to keep the tools that help me make more money. For example, one of the tools I use is to stay within an area filter. As a platinum driver, I get 4 uses of those tools. If you're not a platinum driver, you only get 2 uses of those tools, and they only last 3 hours each. So if you only get 2 uses, that means you can only use it for 6 hours. Well, what if I want to drive for 12 hours? Now I don't have an area filter to use, which now I have to cherry pick my rides because I don't want to take a ride that's going to take me too far. And I don't have the area filter to stop me from going too far. But as a platinum driver, I have 4 uses. And at 3 hours per use, that's 12 hours. But we can drive up to 18 hours per day. Not a recommendation, just something that can be happen. And if you get elite, you now get 6 instances for 18 hours. And maybe I don't drive the 18 hours. Maybe I go online during traffic time. I use the head towards a destination filter to head downtown so that I'm only picking up rides that are going towards downtown, which is the opposite direction of traffic. So there's no traffic going downtown. So I'm only want rides that take me downtown. And then once I'm downtown, I use the stay within an area filter to stay downtown. And maybe I do that for 6 hours. So I use 2 stay within an area filters. And then you know what? It's time to go home. But I only want rides that will take me home. Then I'm going to use my head towards destination filter. So having these tools are very important for me. So I do have to find that middle ground between cherry picking the correct times to drive. So I'm not over cherry picking rides so that I can use these filters. They're very important.